Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online build video with me, Sherman. Today guys, we're taking a look at the Vampire Lord. Now this is a build that I have really been wanting to make for a while, but it never really had its use in the way that the game worked at the time, because it was so... The skill line for Vampire was so limited, so now that it's not, it actually kind of excels now. So let's go ahead and get into the build. So taking a look at what we are a Dark Elf Nightblade. Dark Elf, I'm not necessarily going to say is the best option, but it is a really good option because you have the high magicka stamina, weapon, and spell damage combination built into the race. So it makes it a really viable option. Now, the other thing that kind of sucks about this is it is a light armor build. So you can't really focus into that heavy armor defenses or medium armor physical damage. You have to play into the light armor spectrum a little bit more. So there is a risk versus reward play style here, but it's very worthwhile. So taking a look at sets, we have 10 into magicka, 54 into stamina. This gives us a magicka pool of 25k, health of 22, 28k stamina. We do use a lot of physical attacks, but we use a lot of magic as well. So we want that good balance of resource pools, but also of high stats to give us good damage output. On top of that, our magic recovery is coming in at 1201. Stamina recovery is 692. Now I know it seems low, but that's fine. 692 is going to be more than enough that you need, because you are going to be doing some heavy attacks and everything else. So spell damage 2333, weapon damage 2413. We have a 41% spell crit, 42% weapon crit, and we have spell resistance coming in at 12k, almost 13, and then the same with physical resist. Now, moving on down, we are using the Thief Mundus Stone to get the higher amount of critical. As you can see, it's not super huge, but it's enough to get us these higher numbers. We are a vampire at stage 1. Stage 4 on this would be better, but it takes so long to get the stages that I just said, you know what, I'm just gonna do this instead. You are gonna take some extra damage from some stuff, not a huge amount, because 5% on a Dark Elf is nothing, because they get fire damage mitigation. So we are using Tri-Stat food, of course, and then moving on to sets and stuff. So going over the food, so Tri-Stat food is going to be your best option. Potion wise, tripods are going to be your best option, and the reason for that is because you're using 2 of the 3 resources primarily, but the 3rd resource you're going to be using as well. So you want all 3 resources being able to give them back, and it helps out. Alright, so moving on to sets now. Starting with our primary monster set, we are using Melebeths, the Scourgers set. Now this one piece adds max health. This is good. 2 piece, when you take damage, you have a 10% chance to create a beam that steals 6,966 health over 4 seconds from the attacker. While the beam holds, you gain major vitality, increasing your health or your healing received by 30%. The beam breaks if the enemy moves further than 8 meters away. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds. So this is a really aggressive combat build that you're playing anyways. So you're going to be in the face of the enemy a lot. So you want to be able to have something that keeps you alive. And this really plays onto the whole vampire theme anyways. The next set is Night Mother's Gaze. Now, you guys are probably wondering, why Night Mother's Gaze? Well, it's because it does apply that major fracture, so it gives you higher physical damage penetration, but you're also in light armor, so you also get spell penetration, so you get this good balance again. So this is a light armor build. So if you look at the helm, head is heavy, The shoulders are medium. Everything here is light. So this is a 5-piece light armor build. And we are using a stamina DPS set. Now, because we're using a stamina DPS set, we do get that higher weapon critical, we do get that higher spell critical, and it allows us that, again, that flexibility. So Night Mother's really good for that. The next set. And anyone who knows me knows what the next set's going to be. Yes, it is the Vampire Lord set itself. So this one, 2-piece adds Magicka, 3-piece spell damage, 4-piece spell crit, 5-piece. Increase the bonus and penalties of your vampire stage depending on how far you have progressed. Stage 1, additional flame damage taken. Stage 2, regular ability cost. Stage 4, of course, or stage 3, you get this reduced vampire ability cost. Or, well, you know, at the different stages, you get those at different percentages. Now, because you get these different penalties, and these bonuses, that's where it really shines, is you get that higher vampire aggression out of the set. It does cost your abilities to go up, but you're not going to see a huge difference. So that's the way I put together this build. Now, moving on to the traits and enchants. The helm, of course, reinforced because it is heavy armor. The chest and legs, invigorating. I like using invigorating because I like that recovery. Even though it's a small amount, if I'm playing with a recovery piece, anything that gives me a recovery, it really does add to that. So it's kind of a trade-off. And then, of course, we are using tri-stats on the big pieces, the helm, chest, and legs. On the smaller pieces, we are using a combination of Magicka stamina. So magic on the shoulders and belt, stamina on the gloves and boots, and then divines on the small pieces. On to the jewelry. We are using 2 tri-rune rings, of course, as always, with spell damage. And the reason for, again, the tri-rune and the tri-stance is to give you a better advantage in the different pools. The reason for the not using tri-stats here is it doesn't give you as much as using a pure stat enchant. So the small pieces won't give you as much in tri-stat. So using this instead actually gives you more Magicka than you could get otherwise. This gives you more stamina than you could get otherwise. So this combination really plays well with this setup. And it doesn't make the build any more or less expensive or cheaper. It just makes it easier to play and manage. And then, of course, on the necklace, we do have Mag Recovery infused. This is going to give you that higher recovery rate, and this is important for this build because you use a lot of Magicka-based abilities mixed with stamina. Your stamina you can get back from heavy attacking and other means, which you'll see, and yeah. So on the front bar, we are using a sword and dagger combo. Now, the reason for the sword and dagger combo is the sword will do 5% or 2.5% extra damage to all your abilities. And then the same thing applies here. This gives you a 3% extra crit chance on the front bar. If I swap, you're going to see my crit chance does change, but not by a huge margin. So, the other thing is that on the front bar, we do have an absorb stamina enchant, and we have an absorb health enchant on an infused weapon. The main hand is going to be Nerdhoned for the increased damage that it's going to give us on the front bar. The reason for the infused is to increase the health return on that dagger. So you want this dual enchant combination. Now, you can't have 2 stamina here, but you can have a stamina Magicka or a stamina health. Onto the back bar. 2-handed, infused with weapon spell damage. We want that high weapon spell damage. Trust me, you guys will see why as we progress with this character through the dungeon. So, as you can see, the build works with the way it's set up so far very interesting. But I chose Nightblade for a reason. And that's what we're going to get into now. So, taking a look at our skills we have on our bar first, and then I'll go over the skills we have unlocked, and why I unlock some of these skills versus why I'm not using them versus other skills. It's a really interesting thing, but the whole idea of the build is we're a vampire lord. So, First ability we have is Rending Slashes. This is a great damage ability. It does damage up front, damage over time, and it also reduces the movement speed of enemies. But that's not the whole point. It's the fact that it does a decent amount of damage. Now, a lot of people are going to say that's not really that much, but you haven't seen what this thing can do yet. Next up, we have our next ability, which is Arterial Burst. This deals magic damage. Deals up to 50% more bit damage based on your missing health. And if you use this ability while you are under 50% health, it'll always be a critical strike. You won't be using this that much under 50% health. Next ability, we have Bloodthirsty. Now this is a great ability. It's a rapid fire attack damage ability that just gives you health. Now you have this choice of using this ability or this one, either one, as your primary spammable, and you can have this as just a dot. So you have these two really high bursty type damage. This one heals you. So you will be focusing a lot on Bloodthirst. Now, the next ability we have is Dark Cloak, of course, and this does a heal every second for 8 seconds, and it scales off your max health. The heal isn't huge, but you also gain minor protection while this is active for the 8 seconds, so you get 8% damage reduction. This applies to everything, including your vampire stuff, all that. Next up, Funnel Health. This is a great heal, and it's very vampiric, kind of, anyways. So you deal magic damage with this to the enemy, and you heal yourself or 2 other nearby allies for 56% of the damage inflicted every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. The reason we have this slotted is because in Siphoning Tree, we actually have Magicka Flood. As long as you have one of the abilities from this line equipped, you get 8% max Magicka added to your character for having it slotted. So that's why we have one here. We actually have one on the back bar. The next ability we have is Veil Blades. Really great ability, really powerful ability actually. And the reason why it's so powerful is it reduces movement speed of enemies by 70%. It deals magic damage every second. It lasts for 18 seconds. And people inside of the circle get 30% damage reduction. There's also a synergy attached to it. So it's a really good balanced skill to have on the bar. Moving on to the back bar now, and this is where things get hectic. First ability we have is Debilitate. This deals magic damage to the enemy and it applies Magicka Steel. So this is another way for you to sustain your Magicka without needing a Magicka weapon to heavy attack to get resources back. You're going to be getting a lot of Magicka. Next ability we have is Carve. This deals damage up front, damage over time, very much like Rending Slashes. Now, the next ability we have is a really unique one, and it is called Sated Fury. This one, allow your monstrous appetite to take hold, increasing your weapon and spell damage by 660. When you toggle this ability off, you heal for 38% of the damage total health cost. While spent, while toggled on, you cannot be healed by anyone other than yourself. The next ability is Mirage. Now this is really cool because it gives you a little bit of extra spell and physical resist for 26 seconds. It also gives you minor resolve and major evasion. So minor resolve is that physical and spell resistance. Major evasion reduces area attack damage by 25%. This means area damage of being applied to you. So it's another way of mitigation, but it's also really fits the whole vampire theme, and you'll see why. Next up, Leeching Strikes. Very powerful thing for getting stamina back whenever you light or heavy attack, and the fact that when it runs out or you reactivate it, it gives you a huge chunk of stamina. Last but not least, the one skill everybody's been wondering about. Do I have it? Yes. Perfected Scion. When you are in Stage 5 Vampire or Stage 4 Vampire, you can change it to Stage 5 Vampire, which removes all the negative drawbacks. So it makes your set, you would think, ineffective, right? But it doesn't. You still gain all the benefits of your set, including that high percentage increase in your vampire abilities. Alright, so now that you guys have seen all this, and this transformation basically heals you to full health and increases your max health, magic, and stamina by 10,000. You heal for 17% of the damage. It's insane. So let me go ahead and show you this build, or show you the CP, then we'll show the build in action, and then I'll go over the skills. Because there is a lot of skills attached to this that play into the theme of being a vampire. And, yeah, we'll just do it. So, Incapacitating Strikes does physical damage or disease damage. You have Killer Blades, disease damage. You have Ambush, which is like this teleport leap attack, and it applies minor vulnerability to enemies. You also have Mirage, you have Reaper's Mark, and Relentless Focus. Now, you're going to notice I have a lot of Magicka-based abilities, or Stamina-based abilities unlocked on the class, but when you get to the Shadow line, we have one here, and the rest is all Magicka. And a lot of these are really interesting. We have, like, Refreshing Path, we have Mass Hysteria, we have Dark Shade, which is a shadow that can fight beside us. Siphoning, you have Soul Siphon. You have Funnel Health, you have Healthy Offerings, Debilitate, Leeching Strikes, and Sap Essence. All really good abilities. And then, of course, when you move on to the weapon skills, we have all the dual-wield skills unlocked, starting with Rain, Bloodthirst, Raining Slashes, Steel Tornado, Deadly Cloak, and Shrouded Daggers. And then, of course, two-handed as well, Berserker's Rage, Wrecking Blow, Stampede, Carve, Executioner Strike, and Rally. Armor, we are light armor, so we do have access to Dampen Magicka, a shield. And then moving on to Soul Magic, you do have Shatter Soul and Consuming Trap. Vampire is where this really takes off. So we have Perfected Scion, which I've already shown you, Arterial Burst, Sated Fury. We do have Drained Vigor. Now this is a really powerful damage over time ability. To some degree, it does magic damage and heals you for 23% of missing health and restores 5% of your missing stamina every second for 1 second. You're not going to be that low on stamina where you need this a lot, but it is there if you do. Next is, of course, Hypnosis. This one is really cool. It basically stuns enemies for 5 seconds. So it's a massive stun. It's really cool. It does it in, I think this is the area effect. It does it all the way around you. And then we have Blood Mist. Really powerful ability. Really good in those escape moments when you're playing in PvP. But it also works really good in PvE, so it's like you have a good mix of there. Also, I have all the vampire passives unlocked. And whenever you unlock a skill for one tree, it doesn't matter what it is, always unlock the passives. Because you can take advantage of all the passives, no matter what. Fighter's Guild. Yes, I do have Flawless Dawnbreaker, Silver Shards, Ring of Preservation, Evil Hunter, Barbed Trap, and then in the Mage's Guild, I have Ice Comet, Inner Light, Structured Entropy, Scalding Ruin, and Balance. Psijic Order, Temporal Guard, Borrowed Time, Crushing Weapon, Channeled Acceleration, Min Spirit, and Introspection. And then, of course, on Undaunted, we have Sanguine Altar, which is another great ability that a vampire can throw out because it does lifesteal. It's really kind of in that idea. Excuse me. We have Tangling Webs, Inner Rage, Spiked Bone Shield, and Mystic Orb. And then, of course, we have the two Undaunted passives, which are probably some of the most important passives you can get as you play through dungeons. Aggressive Horn, Echoing Vigor, and Frozen Caltrops. And then, of course, on the support side, Replenishing Barrier. This allows you to get ultimate back whenever somebody's shield drops, and 1,000 Magicka. We have Efficient Purge and Mystic Guard. Racial, Dark Elf. Dark Elf is really good as a vampire because 1, they get the Magicka stamina increase, 2, they get resist fire, so they are immune to burning status effects, and they gain flame resistance 2310. That applies to your spell resistance. So, and then of course you have Ruination, which increases both weapon and spell damage. Crafting, Alchemy, Medicinal Use, and Provisioning, Gourmand, and Connoisseur. And for some reason, the Dark Elf just looks vampiric. Now, moving on to CP. And you guys are going to see very similar to a lot of my other stuff. So, starting with Red Tree, 56 Ironclad. Reduces your damage taken from direct damage attacks by 20%. We have 10 into Spell Shield. This increases your spell resistance by 1,003. And then over here we have 28 in a light armor focus. This increases physical resistance by 2542 while wearing 5 pieces of light armor. 31 into thick skin reduces damage over time effects by 13%. 43 into hardy, physical poison disease damage reduced by 10%. 43 into elemental defender, flame frost shock and magic damage reduced by 10%. Moving on again, we have 40 into bastion. This one increases the effectiveness of your damage shields by 40%, or 16%, sorry. 19 into health recovery, increasing healing received by 5%. And then of course in the green tree we have 40 into warlord, reducing break free cost by 16%. 16 into sprinter, reducing sprint cost by 10%. 16 into bashing focus, reducing bash cost by 10%. And moving on, we have 43 into mooncalf. This increases your stam recovery by 10%. And we have 75 in Arcanus. This increases your mag recovery by 14%. We have 40 in the tumbling, reduces the roll dodge cost by 16%. 40 in the shadow ward, reducing block cost by 16%. Moving on to the blue tree, and this is where things get different. So 43 in the blast increases your healing done by 10%. 23 in Elfborn. This increases critical damage and critical healing of magic abilities by 10%. 43 in Elemental Expert. This increases Flame, Frost, Shock, and magic damage by 10%. And then, of course, moving on over here, we have 35 in the Physical Weapon Expert. This increases your light and heavy attacks with dual wield, two-handed bow, sword and shield, you name it, and werewolf form by 20%. And then we have 40 in the Master at Arms, increasing direct damage done by 16%. Moving on to the final blue tree, we have 43 in the Might. This increases your physical, poison, disease damage by 10%. 23 in the Precise Strikes, which increases your critical damage and critical healing by 10%. And then 20 in the Thaumaturgy. This increases your damage over time effects by 9%. We don't use a lot of damage over time because it's just a really aggressive build, and you'll see how well it works here in a second. So that's pretty much the build itself. Now, you guys want to see what it's like in action, I'm sure. So let's go ahead and head on down here to the dungeon. As always, we're going to go take it on with this build. Now, I do want to get this cleared. A lot of people ask me why I use this specific dungeon. It's because there's only 2 packs of mobs you have to fight through to get to the boss. It's a really simple dungeon to get through. So, buffs first, including our very powerful vampire thing. And this is why we use Bloodthirsty. You see how much health I've already used? You don't want to lose health at all in this build. You want to keep it up as much as you can, because you do take increased damage. Remember that. Oops. And you don't get a lot of time when you're in a big pack to heavy attack. So you want to focus on that stuff as much as you can. So there we go. So I did go through a lot of stamina then, because I had to get my health back because of that ability. That ability will kill you. But the thing is that when you have your Leeching Strikes, you have this going. You actually get 2,762 weapon and spell damage. Now, excuse me, that's on that bar. But let's see what we're like on the front bar, because remember, when you're on the front bar, things change. So almost 3k weapon and spell damage with this, and it makes it really powerful. So let's go ahead and head on into the next room. I'm going to go ahead and get Dark Cloak already healing me, so it can give me that thing. Another great ability to use instead of this is the Sap Essence. Now that's a really great AoE. That does a lot of damage. And I gotta heal up a little bit. And yes, I do use a lot of potions with this build. mainly because you kind of need it. Alright, so there we go. Now we're going to move on to this last room with the boss in it. And the boss is very dangerous with this build. So you have to be on your toes because of how much damage this boss can deal to you. So you have to stay really focused on moving with this, like I said. Because you don't want to stay too long into that poison because it will mess you up. Now I can stand here because I have my Vela blades down, so I'm gonna use it to my advantage. Attack. And there is a weird bug with some of the vampire abilities that when you come out of them, it won't let you go into the attacks. So watch your skills. And don't be afraid to turn that one ability off either, because it's going to help save you resources a lot of the time. So, oh, get the health back up. Get the health back up. Get the health back up. Oh, and it got me. There we go. Our vampire helm kicked in. There it goes. It's disappeared. So I'm going to go ahead and just die. But you can see, even with that, like, it takes a little bit to kill me. So, we're in a way shrine. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, wow, that's really crazy. Now, like you said, if you don't want to use the rapid strikes, another great ability that you can use, again, class ability, siphoning, sap essence. And the reason I say this ability is because you can run into the room and hit everything, and this gives you 20% weapon and spell damage. So it's a nice way to get that high buff of weapon and spell damage, and it gives you another way to heal and deal magic damage. So really good trade-off with some of these abilities and how they work. But that's pretty much how the vampire itself works, the vampire lord, in a dungeon setting. As you can see, if you play this kind of a build, the risk versus reward is there, but it's a very high risk. So you have to be on your toes, you have to know how the build works, and you really have to focus on that idea of, like, I gotta stay alive to do this. Now, you can switch out some of the other abilities if you want for more vampire-ish type stuff and different things. I just like the way this build works in its combination of skills. It really allows it to flow very well. Now, if there is something about a build that I make that you don't like, traits, enchants, Mundus Stone, skills, you can change them. That's why I give you all these different options, is so you have the ability to pick and choose what skills you want to use. Like, if you don't like the idea of using rending slashes, you can use the assassinate ambush to get that quick teleport, move in, attack, do a lot of damage, and then you still have your light and heavy attacks, which you can do, and you might not even be using that many weapon abilities. You might be using more vampiric abilities, more all the abilities above focused on that. So there is a lot of role play with this build. There is a lot of interesting play with this build, and it's a very powerful build when used properly. So it's just a matter of figuring that out, learning how to play it, and utilizing the tools you have available. So To the person who asked me if I was going to make a Nightblade vampire, yes, I was. I already planned it. I've been waiting to do this because this vampire lore doesn't get used enough. So having that to be able to use in a build really, really excites me. I know I didn't use the Vampire Blood Scion. I'm only at stage 1, and it's really wasn't worth it. But it is a very powerful ultimate when you can use it. In fact, I will go ahead and show you guys the power of this ultimate, if I can remember how to activate. There we go. So you can, and the funny thing is that you can be on both bars, so you can switch between the two. And it makes you even more powerful, especially if you have this going, you have this going, you have so much more health, stamina, and magic. Look at this, 41,000, 35, and 38. This thing's a beast, man. And it is. It's a super powerful beast of a freaking monster. And it's awesome. I do love it when you transform into Blood Scion. That's like when you want to go total ag on a group of mobs. You just want to devastate everything in your path. That's what you do. You throw in your vampire form and you just... Sorry if I seem a little excited. This build was probably one build that I've been super stoked about releasing. There is a couple other builds throughout this montage of builds I have built already that I have been waiting to share with you guys, but this one and like the Battle Priest of Meridia, the Battle Cleric, and the North Wind Barbarian, I'm excited about sharing the Slayer and the Blood Hunter. I really am. But this one here just really takes the cake out of all of them because it's so unique, and it's a vampire. So it's just that cool. So that's it, though, for this video, guys. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, you know what's coming next. Go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.